I'm here with Dusty Fields. Some of you will recognize Dusty because often he's out in front of the church greeting people, saying hello. And I've known Dusty for a lot of years, and we have some mutual friends, and I know you've got a real like a life and death story about how God came through for you, and an exciting story to tell. So why don't you kind of jump in wherever you want to start it?
Okay, so when I was younger, I knew that I had some issues, being premature, some hearing issues, and found out when I got on the fire department that they needed to take a closer look at me to see that my kidneys weren't filtering correctly, and I was like 50% kidney function when I got on the department. I was almost not allowed to go on the department, and the physician said, well, as long as you keep an eye on it, you know, you a lot of people can live with 50% kidney functions and be able to survive. So I got on the fire department, and for the first about 10 or 12 years, I was doing okay, and then I started having some kidney issues in regards. They had me on some medication, and finally they said, hey, you need to go on dialysis. And I was just a newly promoted captain.
Wow.
And I was at like 6 or 7% kidney function, working every day, fighting fires as a fire captain. So,
6 or 7%.
Yep, that's where I was
Holy
at.
cow!
Yeah.
So then there's a great story of how that resolved. What?
So I'm working. I'm on home dialysis. It's called peritoneal dialysis. I'm at home, and I'm doing the dialysis, and then I'm working. I didn't ever want to go on disability or anything like that. I just I want to continue my, they gave me the job at the fire department. I want to get back to work. So my goal was to get back on the fire truck. So the fire department was gracious enough, and the city itself, to have a job, a mercy management job, which actually is another story altogether. It opened up doors where I'm at today.
Oh, wow, cool.
So we can talk about that some other time. But anyways, I did emergency management for a year, and I was put on a list for transplant. Well, there was a handful of folks on the fire department that put in. So my boss put in, my best friend put in, and a really close gentleman that worked with me, who was the public information officer, Steve LeGros, Christian guy. He put in, and he actually matched enough to give me a transplant in 2006 in June.
I don't know if you know this part of the story. Even in preparing for this, we didn't talk about it, but one of the guys that was testing to see if they were a match for you was a mutual friend, Charlie Smith.
Yeah.
And Charlie was kind of the guy that I think eventually invited you to Stone Ridge. And
he did.
That was the connection. But Charlie was in my small group at the time. My whole small group was praying for you all throughout that whole thing.
That's wonderful.
I still remember. Like, I remember houses that we were meeting in, and always talking about this Dusty Fields, and I kind of had this vague idea of who you were, but I didn't even know you at the time. But yeah, we had a lot of people praying for you.
Yeah. So Charlie and Tammy told me not too long ago, when Tammy's going through her stuff right now. She said when you were building a church, that in the green room there was an area where you could put people's names and stuff.
Right. Yeah.
And our family's names on the wall in there.
Yeah.
So just shows you how God is working. So
that's right.
Yeah.
So Steve LeGros became a match for you for a kidney.
Yes.
And then and that went all the way through. He donated the kidney.
He did. So in June of 2006, I had the kidney transplant, and a year later, I was back on a fire truck working actually at the station right down the street here.
That's amazing. What did that unlock for you in terms of like faith?
Well, I always had a really strong. I always knew that let me think. It was 06. I wasn't going to church regularly. That Charlie and Tammy were praying probably about that in a small group too, saying, "Hey, I wish the Fields family would show up to church or whatever." And I always, I don't know what the word is. I just always knew I was always been optimistic, because I always thought it could be worse. I could have had, terminal cancer or something like that. I go, man, this is something, if 100 years ago I would have been dead. There's some ways. I looked at it optimistically.
Right.
I'm not going to say in the beginning of it I wasn't depressed at first, but because I think we go through the whole emotional process of dealing with an issue. You go through the more
Can wear you down.
yeah, it can wear you down, and you're like, why me, and all this stuff, and I had to keep a positive outlook, but it reinforced my thoughts of God being with me, because he could continue to open doors for me. I mean, I wasn't supposed to survive. I was less than 2 pounds as a baby, so there's so many things that have happened to me in my life that doors are opened up. I wasn't supposed to get on the fire department, but I was allowed to, and so every time that something has come up, God's always opened the door. From one way or another, he's charted that path for me. So it kind of reassured me that, that's he kind of whispering to me, hey, come my way.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you think that the experience that you went through with the transplant and the people that were there for you, do you think that the experience that you went through with the transplant and the people that were there for you during that time, did that make it more likely for you to say yes when Charlie invited you to church? Was there a direct influence there?
I always had that pull, that feeling, and yes, I think that transplant stuff, I think that helped. I think that pushed me along to know, hey, God has provided for you, and there's more, and I want to show you more, and so you can give back and help.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for sharing the story, Dustin.
Okay, appreciate it.
All right.
Yep.
All right.